Greetings and welcome back to yet another episode of the Daily Run, and today we're playing as Blue Baby. So not only does this seem like a pretty difficult run, but it also seems like a run that's not really gonna be kind to us. And I say that only because of course we're going to Mega Satan, which is a difficult objective, but also because we're playing one of the hardest characters in the game. And I know it might not seem that way, but Blue Baby was once considered to be the hardest character in the game. And now obviously we have the Lost and the Keeper, and that's kind of torture in itself, but just Blue Baby not having disposable HP is a difficult obstacle to overcome, especially when you consider it in a daily environment, and especially when you're trying to play in an Afterbirth plus amount of items, the diluted item pools and things like that, and it just does put you on the spot, and just put you maybe at the edge of the seat, and you have to really consider about what you're gonna do, and every choice that you make has to be very deliberate. I feel like that gives Blue Baby its challenge, but also its excitement whenever you play as him. There's just a lot of strategic value going on here, and not really so much about luck or whatever, that I feel like Blue Baby runs always kind of put a smile on my face in some sense. But of course, let's focus, let's talk details. What can we really do in this particular run to kind of increase our chances of getting a high score? So first thing I want to say is that a lot of people found this daily to be quite difficult, and I'm not saying it wasn't. It was definitely one of those more arduous dailies that you kind of have to kind of pummel your way through, and I think a lot of that does come down to just which items you get. Of course, how does your run look like, because to succeed with Blue Baby you really need either one of three things. You need to have either a really powerful run or a strong enough run to get to the end. You need a lot of defensive items, so you need the Relic, maybe Dark Bomb, the Mitre, things like that, or you need to you need to be really good at playing the game, so you don't take a lot of damage, and of course because you don't have enough HP to kind of put back in your HP pool, because Spirit Hearts are pretty rare, then in that sense, of course, you need to play well so you don't get hit a lot, and that just kind of maybe another way to perform well. But I think the last one doesn't really do it justice, because there's so many things that can go wrong in a run, especially in the daily environment. Like I said before, you have to get to Boss Rush, you have to get to Hush, you have to get to Mega Satan, and all of those things just have that associated risk with them. I pretty much expect to get hit like 3 times in every single one of those objectives, and that's gonna cost me like six Spirit Hearts in total, just by going there, and that's something that I expect to happen. Of course, sometimes I get hit less, sometimes I don't get hit at all, and sometimes I get hit for much more than that, but I think the average, the median value does lie in there somewhere. So knowing that, what can we really do in order to really not take as much damage as possible? And of course, one of those things, I think a lot of people would say, don't take Devil Deals, because Devil Deals are a really nice way to not only lose Spirit Hearts, but also kind of lock yourself in, so then every time you get a Devil Deal and see a good item, you're kind of forced to pick it up if you want to keep up with the competition. And of course, I think that's a good point, because taking Devil Deals as Blue Baby is pretty dangerous, especially if you don't have a way to regenerate your health, but I don't think you can always do it. And ideally, of course, you would always go via the Angel Deal route, especially now that they've been buffed, and they're actually viable. And I think in this particular one, there was Godhead hiding in there somewhere, so that would have been obviously very good. But there's no way of knowing in advance. So I picked up the Dark Matter in the very first Devil Deal for one particular reason, and that's because in Afterbirth Plus, the item pools are very diluted, so getting DPS upgrades is actually pretty much of a rarity, especially on those early floors, and because there's such a huge spike in difficulty when you enter the 3rd floor, because you have the Dank variation, a lot of enemies which have a lot of HP, and just a lot of really nasty item room combinations. Put you in the spot where you need to get some damage, or at least you need some DPS in order to get through them much more efficiently. And not only that, if I didn't pick it up, not only would I have to do the entirety of the Caves XL without any DPS upgrades, but it would also showcase in the very later amount of floors. And of course, being a 3.5 damage on the 5th or the 6th floor is just a recipe for disaster. You're gonna be slow, and not only are you gonna miss Boss Rush like we did in this case, even though we did pick up this damage upgrade, we might also miss Hush, and obviously that would leave us quite behind points-wise, and there's just really no way to catch up from that point. But I decided to take it because, like I said, I don't think there's a way for me to get more DPS upgrades. There's so many items in this game now that the DPS upgrades have become quite of a rarity. So when you do see them, I feel like you have to take them. Of course, you lock yourself in a position where where you're only gonna get the Devil Deals later past that point, but luckily this run was kind enough to give us enough Spirit Hearts in order to be able to avoid that. Afford that, but also avoid it in some sense. Whatever. But you kind of have to be very careful when you do that, because as soon as you enter a devil deal, even if you have 12 HP, picking up one item is gonna cost you 1/4 of your health, and usually maybe you're gonna get 2 items, maybe you want to pick a boat up, that's gonna cost you half of your HP, and you really can't do that, especially when you're going to fight something like Hush. Like, in the average case, I would say maybe Hush hits me 3 times, and I would need like 6 Spirit Hearts to feel comfortable, but even that might not be enough. I really want to have as much health as possible, so suddenly, you know, I might see a good item like Sacrificial Dagger, when I have something like maybe 10 HP, and I just won't pick it up, because I feel like if I do pick it up, I'm just gonna be left in a position where I can't really do much. Maybe in this particular case, it would be a better idea, because I have the one that makes you invincible, the Gnawed Leaf, and maybe, you know, we could cheese it that way, and that's maybe one of the possibilities, but it does leave me in a position where I just am a bit hesitant to pick up items, just because I feel like I need more HP in order to really tackle them, and especially because I have the Wafer now. 3 full Spirit Hearts is 6 hits of damage, and 6 hits of damage is just something that I can't throw away on a character that really doesn't have a way to get more HP. So I feel because of that, not only is Blue Baby a very difficult character to play as, but also very strategic and very satisfying, because when you make a decision that kind of pays off in your favor, you just get rewarded for it in some sense. And of course, we did get things like Blank Heart, we did get a bit lucky by getting that 1-pip Dice Room, and of course that did give us Polyphemus and just a bit of a stronger run in general. But even looking past that, I still feel like we made some decisions early on that paid off, like for example picking up that Dark Matter. Of course, I could have just gotten nothing from the Angel Rooms, but just looking on my run, I arrived at the boss fight at like 28 minutes, let's say. But if I didn't pick up Dark Matter, I feel like just because of the Caves XL, my run would be 2 minutes slower, and I would miss Hush. And of course, knowing that in retrospect, I feel like I did make the right choice, but obviously if there were better items hiding in Angel Deals, that's obviously even better, but of course I couldn't have known when I made that decision in the very first place. So we did get to Hush with a run I would consider that's pretty okay at beating Hush. First of all, I think Bob's Rain is great because it does give you that poison take damage, and of course it does kind of help with AoE. But I think the most important part here is that we have penetrative shots, and penetrative shots are just useful for flies that spawns, and also the blue guys, and also the polyps that are kind of on the ground. And just all of those things combined, when you can kind of take them out in like only 3 or 4 hits, because their damage is naturally high, it will allow us to be in a position where I feel like we can take him out in a pretty comfortable manner. Of course, it all depends on the attacks that he does, and sometimes, you know, when he does his continuous attacks, he switches his direction so often that there's really no way to know where they're coming from, and you just end up getting hit. But overall, I feel like it was a very stable fight. I didn't get hit too many times. I think I got hit 3 times in total. So that, I feel like, is something I would consider the average case scenario whenever I'm fighting Hush. Looking at it, I only got hit twice, so okay, that's even better. I did, of course, get a bit lucky in some cases by having my little black fly protect me from the bullets, and I think one of them was a Mask of Infinite proccing. So considering all of that, you know, I did get hit like 3 times in average, if you're trying to consider maybe all of the items and all of the things that could have gone wrong. So I feel like my astute observation on just how many times I get hit does come a little bit with experience, but also it was very accurate. So I feel like next time you play the daily, I think it's a good idea just to kind of keep track of just how many times you get hit when you enter those big daily objectives, and maybe that'll help you make a decision maybe later on in the run, or maybe in some other run, and that's just gonna make you a little bit of a better play overall. So if there's one hint or at least one thing to take away from this video, I think that would be a good place to start. But okay, so we did get through here, and I think I made the biggest mistake here by picking up Mr. Mega. And I always do this whenever I have Bob's Brain, or at least it seems like these 2 items find each other like some soulmates, like Romeo and Juliet. It's really a tragic story in some sense, but because Mr. Mega increases the explosive radius of your explosions, with Bob's Rain, because it's so unpredictable, and because it oftentimes spawns in a position where you really can't get away, or maybe because enemies are chasing you, have to fire it. And because the explosion radius is so deceptively large, like it's absolutely huge. I would say that it takes up like 1/4 of the room, maybe just a little bit less than that. You're just gonna get hit if you're caught in that just vicinity of that area. So there's really no way to go about it. You're just gonna get hit. If you have Mr. Mega and Bob's Brain, you're gonna get hit. I know a lot of people defend Bob's Brain for being a pretty decent item, and I would consider it definitely a pretty good one, especially if you get some Bob synergies. But with Mr. Mega, I think it's just not unusable, but you're just gonna end up getting hit. There's nothing really you can do about it. And I'm making my biggest sin, or my biggest mistake that I always make in a daily run, and that's exploring the Dark Room. I know my run isn't very strong. I only have like 27 damage. You might say, oh, but that's a lot of damage. damage. Well, it is, but not against these bosses, because you still have to hit them quite a few times. And I guess it does help that I'm having something like Bob's Brain. It does kind of help and just kill enemies very efficiently, but even that is just not enough, especially when you have like 3 enemies in the room. You maybe kill 1, but there's still 2 more, and that is just a bit difficult, I guess, what I'm trying to say. And in the end, I just end up with less points than what I started out with, and that's just like the story of my life, really. Whenever I try to explore the dark room, or whenever I think it's a good idea to explore the dark room, I go there and I just decide that maybe, you know, this is a good idea, but then it turns out not to be that good of an idea in the end. But there is one maybe silver lining here. Maybe just picking up that lucky D100 did allow me to get a reroll, and not only was it a bit more of a fun run, but also I got some items which gave me consumables, and of course that gave me a lot of points. So having this technology 0 just destroying everything was very satisfying, and I feel like at least I made the right choice in the fun department. I tried to do one more reroll, try to get some more consumables, maybe reroll the consumables on the ground to something better, but that didn't really turn out. But overall, it was a very decent run. You can see we ended in 45th place, 42,000 points, which is obviously not ideal, but considering just maybe how difficult the run was in some sense, it is a pretty good score, and I feel like at least we did make it to the end. We did fight, we put it our best, and this is maybe the result. So I hope that you did enjoy this one, guys, and I hope to see you next time.